All right, welcome Tinkerbell Contributors Meeting, February 1st, 2022. Here's the agenda we'll follow. I'm posting in the chat now. I did throw a notification out there in Slack and started the recording. And yeah, we've got a code of conduct. Please do check it out in the agenda. And I think new faces. If somebody's here for the first time that's interested in introducing themselves, feel free, but no obligations. Okay, no problem. All right, let's see. We don't have anything in the agenda for show and tell or topics. Does anybody have any ad hoc items? Yeah. Arvind, go ahead.
I actually do have a little show and tell that I wanted to show. I was just gonna type that in. I can go first, so if anyone else wants to, they can go ahead as well. No problem.
You go for it, Arvind.
Okay. Just let me get on video. Hey guys. Yeah, so I just have a little demo of something I've been working on. Like it's basically like what we have with CapT, but working on a little integration with PB&J so that like we can do like automated power on and power off when we're actually like creating clusters and also when we're deleting clusters. So that's just what I wanted to show. I'm gonna do it like.
Arvind, did you want to introduce yourself too?
Oh, actually, yeah, I have been here before. So my name is Arvind. I am on the same team as Micah. I work for Amazon, and I've been like playing around with the Tinkerbell project for a bit, like especially in CapT. And yeah, this is like a little integration that I worked on with PB&J to make automated like delete and create with power on, power off. I just wanted to like show the initial iteration to everyone on the community. Nice to meet everyone. Just a second, let me get my screen ready. It's been a while since I used Zoom. Okay. Okay, sorry, how do I share my screen here? Okay. Can you guys see my terminal?
Yep.
Okay.
So yes, we can, but making it larger could be
a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can do that. Is that a little better?
Ben, can you make it a little bit bigger?
A little bit bigger?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now? Like, can you guys see it? Still not big enough? Because I actually can't see my own screen, so I'm not sure.
It's good for me. Jason.
Is it okay? Okay. So yeah, so basically I want to start off by saying like what I have like set up here for the little demo. So I have like a kind cluster, and I've also already like initialized like a CapT as the like using cluster CTL in it, and it's kind of ready like the management cluster over here. And for the demo purposes, I am going to use like I'm just going to do like a one hardware kind of thing, because it's the point of the demo is more to like show like power on rather than actually like proper cluster creation completely. So I have like a hardware file, and I'll go through what that the hardware YAML and like the little modifications that I made as part of the hardware. But so let me first get that applied. So basically, what I've done is I've created like 3 basic objects. The first one is the hardware CRD, like the one that we are already familiar with. So this is like, this points to one like physical hardware that I have present in my setup. And the new thing that I've added to this hardware is, and if we do like get OYAML, we can, oh, I'm so sorry. So if we do like a get YAML, the new thing that I've added to this is in the spec is, besides the ID, that field that already existed in the spec, I also have like a reference to a new CRD that I introduced into CAPT, which is called like the BMC CRD, BMC being the one that actually communicates with PB&J. And this is like a reference to that CRD, which says that this hardware has this corresponds to this particular like a BMC, and this is the object to look for when we are trying to do any operations like power on actions for this particular hardware. So if I do like a kubectl get BMC, so this is like the BMC object that was created. And if we take a look at that, so it's nothing really, like it's a very simple, straightforward object. So all it has is like the host, which is like the IPMI host or IPMI host for that particular hardware. It also like has the vendor tag. I have like a Supermicro, so I have the vendor mentioned. And the other interesting thing is like the auth secret. So for like accessing actual credentials to talk to the BMC board, so, I like kept like a secret ref here, and this is like the name of the secret and the namespace that secret exists in, so that like during like power on, the CAPT would know to look at this secret to have the authorization credentials, so that it can actually do the operations with the help of PB&J. And just to show like what I have running, I have the basic Tinkerbell components and also PB&J on the side. And this is my kind cluster over here. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is like actually do like a kubectl apply of my cluster spec. So this is this file, like the manual tink.yaml is basically the normal, like I didn't do any much modifications here. Like it's the normal, like the template that you do during like cluster creation from CAPT based on the CAPT template. Just like added a certain things over there to like point to an image that I have locally, etc. So when I do apply, the interesting part is, oh no, I'm so sorry. Okay. So this is the IPMI, like the connection, the IPMI portal for that particular node that I'm trying to make part of the cluster. So the main thing that I want to show is like once the cluster creation actually starts, like this is gonna get like powered on its own. So just give it a minute. I hope I didn't lose my connection to it.
So is this just power, not boot device? You're not doing anything with that?
So so boot device, I am doing something, but that's not at this point. So I'm assuming like this boot device is already being set at Pixie right now. So I didn't want to set the boot device like when I'm doing a cluster create, because by chance if someone gave the wrong node, I'm gonna like override it, saying that if I set it to like PXE and then I do like a Pixie boot and then I do like a power on, I'm gonna like force override like whatever they might have had there by accident. So that's just like that's why I have that conservation, that I'm just trying like a power on at this point. Of course, like those things are like things we can consider, like we could do that or not and stuff like that. But Yeah, so basically, what happened was CAPT spoke to PB&J, and it knew that this was the hardware that it picked, and it knew that this hardware had this BMC, and it used those credentials to like trigger a call to PB&J, and that's what enabled this power on. And all this stuff is like the as we all know, the usual Linux Kid OS coming in, and the template actions like they're getting streamed and gonna get performed. I can probably like skip over to delete. Like I don't have to wait till the whole thing sets up. But while that time, anyone has any like questions until this point or anything that didn't make total sense? Okay, awesome. So this is gonna like do the whole thing. Like as you can see, it just got Linux Kit, and it started like streaming an Ubuntu OS that I have on this. Just to show that, let's maybe look at the template. So it created a template, it created a workflow, and let's do, so we can see the events. Yeah, it's in the state running, and it's like streaming the image right now. So I didn't modify anything like other than that. Like so, everything else is going to be like the typical Tinkerbell experience that we have already like seen before. So the next main thing that I wanted to show is cluster delete kubectl. Yeah. So my cluster name was actually called like test is my like alias in the office, and I just call it test cluster. So it's in the in this particular namespace. So when I hit delete, like the current flow, like before, like whatever changes that I've done is that it's gonna delete the object, so we lose the management, but the actual cluster doesn't get like deprovisioned or anything per se. So that's what we wanted to like kind of do with by automating like a delete flow. Oh, and there we go. So now that the actual node got powered off, like the cluster is, I mean, it's not really deprovisioned because I'm not doing any like system formatting or anything. Like I'm not like clearing off the disk or anything, but what I'm doing here is like I'm powering it off, but also setting it to PXC for its next boot, like in the boot order. So the next time when someone reuses this node, like with CAPT or maybe something else, it's going to go to netboot and wait. So it's going to like get a new operating system and get reprovisioned as if it was like a new node. So it's kind of deprovisioned maybe, but yeah, it's those are all the things that, like are still like to question, but that's basically the demo. Any questions, suggestions, comments?
Yeah, this was really awesome. Thanks for all the work on this. I'm excited to see where this can go.
Yeah, it's like this initial iteration is like considering like the BMC information is not already part of the hardware. Ideally, like if it's part of the hardware on the Tinkerbell stack itself, like we wouldn't need like a separate CRD to like manage and control all this. So that's just a thought, like maybe something to look at next. But yeah, so this is what we got. I mean, I got working at this point.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I think the biggest challenge I would say or trade-off is that our current hardware spec doesn't support secrets. I mean, we don't support secrets in general, right? So having a controller on its own makes it nice that you can obfuscate and you can keep secrets in a nice clean spot. So now I don't know if that's the long-term best solution. I think we probably need a secret solution in general, but or just some guidance, maybe, depending on whether it's built in or not. But that's anyway. But that's my opinion only.
True. Yeah. So that was like kind of like one of the like tricky parts to figure out. Like, no matter how you store it, like it's like the secret that there is at one point you have to like provide it as a string somewhere to get it into the cluster or something. So those are a little concerns, but yeah, I get what you mean. Like. So it's like things to work out and improve. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed that.
Sweet. Any other show and tell items anybody has? All right, feel free to add them on to the end of the topics if they come up. Moving on, let's see, dropping JSON RPC. Is that you, Manny?
Yep, I'm just kind of calling for reviews for anybody if they're interested. I've got a couple of pull requests, which are the more important ones. The next one is on the list there. It's the insecure mode, which I've kind of reworked. I'm taking over it and kind of reworked it. So kind of addressing some of Micah's concerns and kind of feedback, mostly about like non-TLS versus, make sure we have TLS is the default, and then kind of getting rid of like the insecure nomenclature to kind of be more specific as opposed to kind of overall and generic. So that was kind of important. And then in the meantime, while I was kind of going over that, like, just like the pull request was kind of getting huge. And there was some work being done for the JSON RPC, and no one actually ever uses that. So that's kind of dead code elimination I'd like to get into or get out of Tink as soon as possible. So if anybody has any time to, I would appreciate looking through it. I'd like to move forward with that, and I don't want to make sure anybody has looked at it. And then it's it's pretty nice. It's like almost 2,000 lines dropped. So that's always wonderful. And then I'll just kind of roll into this, the next item there. I've already talked about a little bit. It's kind of the non-TLS mode.
Sorry, man, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes, please.
Did we ask in this channel already if anybody is using JSON RPC stuff?
Yep, I mentioned I think last week. I know of 3 clients. Micah has like a test dummy client. That's gRPC. Someone else, I can't remember his name now. He's got a Python client that's also gRPC, and then internally at Equinix Metal we have the Ruby, but that's also gRPC. So yeah, there's no. I think the JSON RPC one was there for our internal use back in the day, but we went to gRPC pretty quickly anyway. And that just stuck around. Yeah, in theory, like you could use curl, but no one's really gonna do that. And there's better clients anyway. Oh, thanks, Marcus.
And Terraform, yeah, great. Okay, yeah, awesome. So, sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
I don't think there's any clients. I would be very surprised if anybody was using the JSON RPC. But yeah, I'm kind of throwing it out there just in case anybody, picks it up in any of the channels. And so yeah, so insecure mode / non-TLS mode. I kind of came across it doing some development on another client where I was kind of like faking out Tinkerbell and stuff like that. It was kind of a pain to do, and it's the biggest pain is when you try to work with like the workflows. With the workers, right? Because we kind of need with the way that we have our TLS set up now, it's all self-signed, and so trying to do that securely, you kind of need to bake in our self-signed cert into the image that gets booted up, and that's just kind of a lot of complexity that we don't really need. So kind of moving towards getting rid of the self-sign, like first-class self-sign support in Tinkerbell. It remains an option if you want it, but you have to do kind of a little bit of work, which I don't think is too onerous or too much to ask, really. So yeah, so adding insecure or non-TLS mode is the first step of that. I've got a work in progress pull request that I'll open up, once these 2 get out, which is dropping the /cert endpoint, which I think the gRPC Go client will handle that transparently. I'll work with I think it's Ronger for the gRPC Python client he's got. But I think it should be pretty easy to do. Pretty easy to handle. That's just kind of where I'm leaning forward to with that. But that pull request is still a work in progress, just to avoid inundating with PRs. So yeah, I guess just kind of announcing that I'd like to move forward. And if anybody comes up, that we'll talk, and if not, most likely get merged in sometime this week, hopefully soon. That's it for me.
Very cool. Thanks, Manny. Exciting stuff. All right, moving on. Jason.
Yeah. It came to my attention that we're no longer using persistent storage for the registry that we're standing up in the Sandbox with the Docker Compose setup. So I'm going to look at, I linked to the Slack conversation where it was brought up. Previously in the 0.5 release of Sandbox, we did have persistent storage there. So I'm going to go ahead and PR to bring that persistent storage back. Just wanted to give everybody a heads up.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Jason. Okay. Arvin, is that you again?
Yeah, just no.
Oh,
Just
sorry,
gonna
man.
talk Jason's topic. I think we've talked about getting rid of the registry, right? Is that something we still want, or can we think of a reason to keep it? I think we're all in agreement that we don't want the registry. Now that we've got like NAT support in all like the sandboxes and stuff like that, and it's kind of unnecessary. It's just kind of a big pain point, right?
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I fully agree. I think we still need to have a story around being able to use a private registry, but I don't think that should be our default configuration. It adds that additional step to where you have to like preload all the images before you could even start running any of the actions. And it's just a barrier to entry for users, mostly at this point.
If I'm not mistaken, the only code change that we would need would be in Tink Worker. And myself and Scott, I don't see Scott, I'm going Scott Garman and Raj, we started working on a kind of a Tink Worker rewrite, but that's kind of been stalled at the moment. But if I'm not mistaken, that would be the place to do it. If anybody's interested in just jumping in, if we can remove this, if I'm not mistaken, it's like we have a hard-coded prefix of like this registry that gets passed in, then I think all you would need to do is remove that. Now, that's saying that the Tink Worker code base is very fragile, and so removing that could cause interesting issues. But if anybody's so brave, please feel free to go in and check that out.
Well, there's going to be a couple of issues to start with. The first one is all the documentation right now shows using non-prefixed image names. So the documentation would need to be updated to point to the actual public registry. The other challenge is going to be right now, people may be mirroring images from private registries, in which case that means we would eventually need to find a way to plumb additional credentials for, private registries into the Tink Worker as well. I don't necessarily know that those things are things that need to be solved during the first iteration, but those are things that we're definitely going to want to track as we look into removing that registry that we have today that's hard-coded.
That's a great point. I'm going to take some notes on this stuff because, I'll try and put this info out maybe in a discussion or some kind of GitHub issue just so we can track some of that because I think that's really helpful. Yeah, some other great points in the chat. Bootkit probably will need to change. Boots itself will need to change. Yeah. Okay, I'll capture some of those too. Appreciate that.
I think making it opt-in to not require the registry would be like the nice first step, and it shouldn't be hard, as you mentioned, Jacob. It's just kind of like the long tail of documentation, ripping out like all this kind of stuff that'll be more difficult when we make that when we get a better story around private registries.
Yeah,
I would actually argue that we probably need to be cautious around that because as soon as we do that, it basically breaks all the documentation that we have out there today for Tinkerbell. So we probably want to make sure that, whatever we do, the documentation is aligned with it so that, it doesn't cause, a surprise for users that try to bootstrap the Sandbox and all of a sudden everything doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that's a challenge we've had actually with some of the recent changes is that we haven't kept a line in our docs. And so people go to tinkerbell.org and it's different than Sandbox and other things. And that causes, I think, some friction that we should definitely take into consideration going forward. Yeah, I like that. Cool. Any other thoughts or comments, questions around that? Okay. I apologize. I don't know how to say this name. Cap T template override.
Hey everyone, that's me.
Hi.
So I think I'm first time joining on video, so I'm gonna do a quick introduction. Hi everyone, I'm Abhinav. I'm also on AWS team. I work alongside with Micah, Arvind, Pooja. Yeah, I just wanted to discuss this PRI open. It was a while ago and I wanted to discuss it earlier, but didn't have a chance to join the meeting until today. So yeah, basically the purpose of it is, I mean, I don't know if this is something you guys even want, but I just wanted to open it. But yeah, the primary purpose or the goal of the PR is in Cluster API, Tinkerbell provider, the template that the nodes use is like currently kind of hard coded, and there are very few things that users can customize on it. And I mean, in this change, I added like a new field that you can use to like override like the whole complete template. And I think Jason already reviewed it, and he has brought out some good points. Like instead of doing this, we could go with the approach where we have run this command post streaming image, run this command before kexecing, stuff like that, instead of overriding the whole template. And I was thinking of that initially as well. My main concern is that there are still some stuff hard-coded in the default template itself. Things like, I think the action images are currently non-overridable. I think it uses by default OCI to disk or something. And I've personally been having some issues with that, so I just use image to disk, and I feel like that would be a nice customization to have, as well as some other things that would be nice to change. So this is kind of like a catch-all. It just allows you to replace the whole thing. Yeah, so just wanted to hear some thoughts on if you guys prefer this approach or we should hold off and go with the approach where we have like more granular support for all these actions and stuff.
Yeah, so I think you've pretty much answered the main questions that I had, and mostly it was around, is this the right field to add versus, other fields? And I think you make a good, very valid point about why, it makes sense to just allow the override of the whole template. I think the other thing is, would this be some that you would expect to be like a one-off on an individual machine versus, or a group of machines, or something that you may want to override for a whole cluster? And in that case, we may want to offer the same field also on the Tinkerbell cluster resource as well. Sounds great. Let's go ahead and make it happen. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Sorry, Abhinav. I was just gonna kind of put this out there. I mean, this might need a bigger discussion later or whatever, but once we go more towards cubifying some of the components of the stack, are we looking to see if template itself can be more CRD style thing? Maybe the individual actions can be, or the template itself, or is there any thoughts along those lines for the future?
Yeah, I think there's definitely potential to change the way things are right now. The current state of the repository was mostly, to get the initial POC out there and get people, seeing what's possible for provisioning in a cloud native manner in a data center. So yeah, there's definitely options to where we can move out the generated template that we have right now from the code base to a CRD resource, or maybe even something just like a config map or something that can be modified by users in a general sense for the entire controller as well. You know, we have a ton of flexibility on the architecture. I think the biggest thing is you know, having those discussions and, you know, trying to iterate towards the common goal. So yeah, I'm quite interested in continuing these discussions, not just over the template override, the PB&J integration and everything. So, you know, whether it's, do we need a separate meeting, you know, specifically around CAP-T so that we don't dominate this meeting, or if we want to set aside time during this meeting to specifically talk about CAP-T, that's great. Maybe we need to start doing some proposals around some of this stuff so that, you know, it's easier to get everybody on the same page. You know, I'm flexible on how we want to do that, whatever works best for the group, to be able to kind of iterate on this without kind of stepping on each other's toes and you know, all that.
Yep, appreciate all the feedback, Jason. Sorry. Yeah, the next thing I mentioned, I think we already discussed, it was getting rid of local registry from Sandbox and Tinkerbell stack. So, I mean, I think I already know the answer, but just to confirm, there's no ongoing effort already to make this happen, right? Like this is an open item.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe that's the case. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I was already kind of looking at all the places where it would require code changes to like remove the local registry. So I can potentially, I mean, I'm open to picking this up if you guys want.
Yeah.
Volunteer.
For sure. That's awesome. I was planning to kind of start maybe like an issue and put a lot of this info. If you don't mind, I'll tag you in that and throw in your info, and then yeah, just run as fast as you can. That'd be awesome. And you definitely ping in the Slack channels and let us know how we can help or answer questions or whatever. This would, I think, be very much appreciated. I think a huge step forward that a lot of people are very interested in. So yeah, I appreciate this.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other topics anybody wanted to bring up that didn't make it maybe onto the agenda itself?
Just one more thing along the lines of getting rid of local registry. Do we also have plans to remove Nginx from Sandbox?
I don't know if I've heard any conversations around that, but yeah, if you want to talk about that now, feel free.
Yes. So, I mean, the main reason is I feel like it should be optional because, you know, some people they might not want to stream the image directly off of their box. They may have like a file server, or they just want to use upstream images or something like that. So it would be a nice case for that. And I've also noticed the Nginx also hosts the certificate for the local registry, if I'm not mistaken. So if we are removing local registry dependency, that would also remove the certificate dependency hosted on Nginx. So
I think it's also used for fetching Aussie or Boots, not Boats. Sorry, Hook, right?
Yeah, the hook.
I mean, we don't need to do Nginx for that, but you know, a web server of some sort, most likely. You know, at that point, you know, why not just keep Nginx? But yeah, I certainly think for getting rid of, you know, the registry and the cert stuff, then its container will be much smaller, or it might just serve up just Hook. You know, we can kind of rework that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to get rid of it entirely. We can make it like optional thing. If users want to do it, they can. If they don't, then they wouldn't have to. I've tried the whole thing without Nginx. I've hosted everything like on a different server outside of Nginx, just to test if the whole thing works. Aussie, the OS image, the search, everything like that. And it all seems to work. So I don't think it will require a lot of changes. Just changing the endpoint to specify, okay, where to pull all these images from should be sufficient, I feel like. So
I think the only thing was the path, at least one of the directories in the path was the images are hosted was hard-coded, right? The current directory. I don't know if you already remember that or you kept that as it is, Abhinav, but there are some hard codings like that might need taken care of.
I think the file names are hard-coded, so that will probably need to change or something like that. But what I did was I just named it the same thing, but hosted it on a different endpoint outside of Nginx.
Yeah, if trying to work on that makes it easier to get rid of all those hard codings, you know, it's definitely 2 thumbs up from me for that work.
Yep, sounds good.
So real quick, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'll probably open an issue on GitHub or maybe start a conversation on Slack about it. Just to get feedback.
Right on. Yeah. For me, it kind of feels like there's 2 interesting concerns here, right? There's one about the hard coding, and then there's one about Sandbox. And for me, in Sandbox, I think we should do a better job about describing what the intent and the goal of Sandbox is. If it's meant to be extremely easy, I think being opinionated and just going down a path that is always the same would be beneficial in that repo, right? But the other concern I think is even more valid is we need to eliminate some of this hard coding so that the flexibility exists in there. And we document that very clearly and say, we've done it in a very opinionated way here in Sandbox, but this is how you can use your own in this way, et cetera, right? I think these 2 ideas could kind of run on their own, possibly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Jason brings up a great point too. Like, I don't know if we have anything out there yet about like path to production, which I think is a big miss, I think, on our end. Because the Sandbox, yeah, as everyone could tell, is again just a sandbox, right? It's it's not made to be run in production. That's something we should definitely, I think, capture and start building out. And I think maybe Equinix Metal might be maybe one of the top candidates at the moment to kind of describe some of that, since we do have it running in some places. So yeah, maybe we can talk about that internally. Right on. Great topic. Appreciate you bringing that. Any other thoughts or comments or questions around that?
Just a quick one. Since we have backwardsly introduced versioning to all of the projects from Sandbox, when we start thinking about all the changes that we want to make to Sandbox, let's also just keep in mind that we need to be able to represent those changes in the representative projects through some sort of semver update, keeping in mind that whenever we do roll out some sort of breaking change like that while we are semver 0 and we don't have to worry about making breaking changes, we do need to cover it in a sort of release note style. Say this is the release where for Sandbox where we removed Nginx, and this is the version where we got rid of JSON RPC. Make sure that we are stating that so that users know what to expect. But that said, there's still a lot of work to make sure that CI can handle tagging properly. Like, it's not wired up yet. So the next time, if we did, I forget what number we're on now, but when the next release of Sandbox comes out, if that's going to be our justification, then we'll need to chase it with some manual tagging and releasing, as was done last time. But we can also get the work in there for CI to do it, so that we can just go to GitHub, say tag this version independently, tag goes out. at least one of the nice things about this is we don't have to worry about breaking Sandbox if everything is pinned to specific versions, or it is currently pinned to specific SHAs, but in the future, maybe specific semvers, and then it becomes easier for somebody to read the release notes that go along with that. Just keep all that in mind as we're changing the interface.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, Marcus, because we're planning on doing a blog post soon on the latest state of Tinkerbell and the roadmap that we have for the Tinkerbell project, as well as the work that we've done so far with the cluster API provider. And as part of that, I was going to see if I could go ahead and do a new release of the Sandbox, specifically covering the Kubernetes types and things like that, that Micah and his team have been working on. So I will follow up with you, Marcus, to make sure that I'm dotting my I's and crossing my T's as I do that, and we move it to the Semver version. And then we can figure out what the next points will be after that, I think.
Jason, is this, you just talked about like a roadmap of the blog post. Is this like a formal roadmap that's
No.
been defined somewhere? Or this is just kind of like, what do you, apologies, what do you mean by when you say roadmap?
So basically, like, you know, the big part is what's new in Tinkerbell. You know, we haven't really done a blog post talking about the cluster API provider. We've done some demos around it, talked about it at some meetups, stuff like that. So get that in a blog post. And then for like roadmap, it was more like, what are some of the things that we're planning on working on in the future? So things like the dropping of the JSON RPC, I think, was on there. We can talk about, you know, whatever. So if anybody's got ideas of things that they want to highlight there, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll make sure that that gets included in the article as well. But it's definitely not going to be like, you know, a formal roadmap where we're making promises to deliver something in a certain period of time.
Okay.
Just, you know, just the general, like, get some interest out there about the Tinkerbell project and get people excited about some of the stuff that we're planning on working for. A lot of hand waving around deliverable dates and stuff like that, because, you know, that's going to depend on, you know, our contributors and, you know, all of that stuff. And as, of course, as all things in open source, you know, things can change from time to time as far as priorities as people come and go into the project. But yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Appreciate that explanation. That kind of brings up an interesting topic for me. So I've been working on governance, and I feel like I am getting close, hopefully, where we can square off and actually define some very clear roles, which would hopefully give us some technical guidance where we could start to make official kind of roadmap items, because now we have official roles whose job is to be technical direction leads, et cetera. So yeah, hopefully here shortly I can get that all ironed out, and then I don't know about timelines, but, you know, maybe before or after we can actually give some real cool milestones and things of that nature. So. All right, awesome. I checked the triage party. There's no discussion items. Is there any other general topics or anything anybody wants to bring up? We've got about 15 minutes left on the call.
I just had a very generic random question. So I kind of heard that Equinix Metal may be using Tinkerbell stacks, you know, maybe production or semi-production environment to provision machines and such. I was just curious about something. So the hardware JSON that, you know, that's fed to the Tinkerbell stack, do you guys kind of maintain your inventory in that format, or do you have inventory somewhere else and then you kind of convert?
No, yeah, it's not a source of truth.
With information that
The hardware JSON is not our source of truth. it gets pushed in from like the central, main, code base and database and all that stuff. And that gets kind of just pushed into each facility. And kind of each Tinkerbell stack being run. That being said, we are not running Tinkerbell, like the Tinkerbell Tink workers in production. We're still running a lot of like legacy stuff. We've got like Tinkerbell in production, like test scenarios and test run, setup. But it's not customer facing or anything at the moment. No.
I like Pooja's word, semi-production. I think we should run with that many.
In production, like one of the things that we do, right? Like one of the reasons, like for a lot of like the heartache and like pain of getting Tinkerbell production, which I thought would be easier, was like the shared code base, right? We do have Boots in production, we do have PB&J in production, we do have Hago in production. It's just kind of like the legacy code paths that are in the code base, and the Tinkerbell code paths are still kind of being tested and tried out. So it's kind of like those pieces are, and then like all of Tink worker, all of that is still kind of not fully in production.
Makes sense. So it takes a while.
It's a slow ramp up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Great. Anyone else? Any other topics they want to bring up? Cool stuff. Other cool things they're working on with Tinkerbell? All right. Right on. Thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate your time. Glad to have you all here. Next week, same time, will be the triage party. No experience required. We'll just run through kind of issues and tickets and make comments. If you're interested in getting up to speed on lots of different repos, it's hopefully it's a nice introduction that way. So with that, take care. We'll see y'all online.